Yeah, so Dopesick got Best Limited Series. So did The Dropout. And then The White Lotus, in which like every human being who was in that seems to have been nominated for something, which is not a show I'm going to watch. Because it's just capital N, capital F, capital M, not for me. It's white people being sad. Like, again, that's not my shtick. It's just not my shtick. But Mayor Winningham, Michael Keaton, Caitlin Deaver, and the Agents of Justice.
Yeah, the Boy Band of Justice.
The Boy Band of Justice got nods.
Amazing.
Only delighted. And Ted Lasso, which you can now join in all of our
celebrations. I was about to say who, like literally everyone from Ted Lasso, I'm assuming.
No, pretty much. Well, I skimmed it really quick, but definitely Jason and Hannah.
Yeah.
And then I think I saw one other supporting, which I would imagine would be Ned, like based on his performance his performance in season 2.
In season 2, so, yeah. I don't know that they're going to go with Roy Kent again, since they went with Roy Kent season 1. And
besides, Brett, I think, is also eligible for a producer Emmy if they win Best Comedy, but they're up against Maisel and Abbott Elementary, which are both very buzzy.
Yeah, Abbott especially.
Maisel, Abbott's so good.
Yeah, but Maisel, it's a weird one. Maisel kind of falls, and they've already given Maisel like all the awards. Like literally,
it's true.
It like swept one Emmy season. So,
and Maisel is falling into the Amy Sherman Palladino trap of not knowing what it's doing in later seasons, from what I hear.
I would disagree with that.
Okay,
but it's we'll see where she goes. I really liked the last season, and I feel like it got a little sidetracked, but not Gilmore Girls level sidetracked.
I mean, that was like, can anything ever get that sidetracked ever again? I don't.
Yes, Lost.
And on that note.
Well, hello, friends and neighbors.
Hello. I just realized I'm having a bit of a tech hiccup with the windows. So will you riff a little bit while I fix the shared window?
Yeah.
Amazing.
I'm back. Dr. Kristen is not on her Todd. Last week she had to scramble because she thought she wasn't going to be on her Todd. And then I got the COVID. And she had to be on her own. But now we're back. We're back in action, the dynamic duo. Never to be separated again until the end of July when Dr. Kristen's in Ireland. I'll be doing them, but the exercises by myself. But for the next couple weeks, we're here.
Okay, I think I fixed the problems.
Do you want me to? I mean, I can waffle about Stranger Things if you're not done.
Nope, I'm all good. I just hit the wrong share screen, but we're fine. So here we go.
We learn by doing. Woo-hoo!
So welcome to Empathy Exercises for July the 12th, everybody, which is, you guys don't know this, but for a large majority of our professional lives, this was one of the most important days in our calendar. And I'm thrilled to death that it's not anymore.
The glorious 12th. I know. A friend sent me a video of a band marching down a side street somewhere in Northern Ireland. Like going into the feeder parade, and there was a house that had a tricolor outside, and when the band passed, the man came outside of the house and threw his rubbish bin at the band, and then the band jumped over the fence into his front garden and was like banging on windows and like threw the rubbish bin back at his window and broke the window. And I was like, whoa. But I was encouraged. There were 2 PSNI officers there, and the Orange Lodge members stepped in and were like, back up, everybody, keep marching. So, but I was like, I said to said friend, I don't miss that at all.
It's a very specific and very important day that culminates a season for one particular group of people in Northern Ireland. And no other group in Northern Ireland particularly enjoys it, down to outright hates it. So, but it is very disruptive celebration of someone's identity and legacy, and disruptive to everyone else on the island, to be honest, but definitely to everyone in Northern Ireland not celebrating it. So someday maybe we'll talk about this as an empathy exercise, but right now instead we're going to start and
apologies, I got distracted by that story that I should have just told you offline. But speaking of things that happen across the pond,
Emma Corrin has come out as queer, which is fantastic. Those who don't know Emma Corrin, I can't remember pronouns. They are using definitively they pronouns. They played Princess Diana in season what of The Crown? 3, 4, 19, 4? Amazing. And they quietly came out as non-binary. They changed their pronouns on Instagram account. And they are now saying something that I just think is really interesting, which is that they are still figuring it out. Yeah. It's all fluid. They don't really know what's going on. They don't really, have a sense. And the good news is for all of us, no one has to.
Yeah.
You don't have to. So I thought this was a delightful example of just really quick reminding everybody that just because you are secure and you know exactly who you are does not mean everybody else does or anybody else has to. So.
Yeah, and it reminds me, I just binged over the weekend the fantastic show Heartstopper, if anyone hasn't seen it. It's so good, and it deals with like gender and sexuality in such an empathetic and compassionate way in terms of the messaging coming out of it, out of the show and out of the conversations that the characters have is like, figure it out. You come out when you want to, if you want to who you want to. It's okay to be figuring it out. Just don't be an asshole about it. Is like basically, because there's this one kid that appears to be confused and a dick about it.
Never good.
We don't recommend. But yeah, like that's the overarching message is like, it's complicated. We're all different. You deserve the time and the space to figure it out. And to say that you're still figuring it out. And it's great that we have all these labels that people can use to identify themselves as and feel like they are expressing themselves accurately. But Emma has a very great reminder for us that we don't always have to have labels either.
Absolutely not. Now we're moving on to something which does need a label, and that is criminal.
Yeah.
So, share with us this empathy update.
Yeah, so this is an update from a full-on GDD that we did that I forced Dr. Kristen, I suggested to Dr. Kristen that she watch a particular episode of the second season of the Netflix show Cheer that dealt with the team finding out, the cheerleading squad finding out about the accusations against Jerry Harris, who was a former star of the show and of the team, that he had solicited sex from minors, mostly through Instagram and Snapchat. So the show and our GDD, or was it might have been a hottish take now that I'm remembering. Either way,
I can't remember.
Our coverage of it went through all the aspects of it and talked about the impact on the team and what it says about Jerry and all those kinds of things. We love a good abuse scandal here at Abby Research, but we just got word last week that Jerry Harris has been sentenced to 12 years in federal prison for these sex crimes. He pled guilty in February to 2 charges for sexually assaulting a 15-year-old in the bathroom during a cheer competition and paying a 17-year-old to send him sexually explicit photos and videos via Snapchat. He also admitted to similar conduct involving other minors. And so we weren't sure what was going to happen with the plea deal and what he was going to get sentenced to. But I am delighted to see that he did get sentenced to quite a long amount of time in jail. And hopefully this will help his victims and survivors through their ongoing journey of healing, to know that there has been accountability for those actions.
Indeed.
Speaking
of accountability for actions.
Speaking of accountability for actions. The Wisconsin Supreme Court last week ruled that we might not have to hold victims of sex trafficking accountable for their actions. Now, this might sound like a strange thing, but it involves a specific case in which a woman is accused of killing a man because he was involved in her sex trafficking. And this is the case that the Supreme Court heard, and they argued that she can, they found that she can argue at trial that she was justified because she was a victim of sex trafficking. So this could help in the larger scale define limits or not on the legal immunity for trafficking victims nationwide. So it ruled that a 2008 law that absolves trafficking victims of criminal liability for any offenses committed as a direct result of being trafficked extends to first-degree intentional homicide. Now, I'm not sure how I feel about this, but it's an interesting conversation point, and I thought an interesting avenue into empathy. Yeah. I've never been sex trafficked.
No.
I don't. So clearly they made an argument, I would assume, that the resulting intentional homicide was a direct result of the trauma of being sex trafficked. I don't know how you make that argument legally or psychologically, but I mean, we have psychological defenses for criminal actions all the time. So, you know, maybe there's some kind of legal precedent. I'm not sure how I feel about it.
Completely fair. I think anytime we need to use jurisprudence to address victimhood and crimes perpetrated on people's bodies and is always challenging.
Yeah.
And it's something that victim rights advocates in various laws around the country are divided on. How do we actually do it without causing more problems? So yeah. I think it's a very valid response. I don't know what I feel about it yet. Very, very valid.
Yeah, but I wanted to bring it to everyone's attention that these are legal conversations and trauma-related conversations that are ongoing in this country and elsewhere as we're trying to figure out how best to support victims and survivors of sex trafficking and other sex crimes.
Other people we're trying to figure out how to support is Brittney Griner. Now,
what? Who's that? I've never heard
Brittney. Of her. There's been so much that has happened since the last time we talked. So
I know it's a big old update.
This particular article talks about the fact that she entered a guilty plea. I, on the last several Good Doctors Diagnose Live, said that I was incredibly disappointed in our mutual alma mater, Baylor University, for not speaking out in support of Brittney. They have since rectified that, and they have called Baylor Nation forward to contact their representatives and ask for Brittney to come home. There are several things here. I would like to remind everybody that guilty pleas does not actually mean guilt. Also, that Russian legal settings have been famous for extorting and torturing people into guilty pleas. There is no evidence that she actually knew she was breaking a law. Again, Brittney was there for work, and she was there for work because the WNBA does not pay equitable salaries to its professional athletes. And so she plays basketball in Russia in the off season. Regardless of her crimes, she is not going to receive a fair trial because fair trials against Americans do not appear to exist in the country of Russia. And the Biden administration has been, in my opinion, far too publicly gentle with their demands to bring her home. And this is a queer woman of color in a country that likes none of those categories.
Literally none.
Literally none. And we need to bring Brittney home. So I'm glad that that Baylor has stepped up. There are incredibly influential Baylor alumni that can make things happen. And we had 2 Baylor alumni who were kidnapped by the Taliban in the early 2000s, and we got them home. So let's get Brittney home, please.
Let's do it, folks.
There is no transition to this, but here's what this is just really, like, honestly kind of exciting. We don't get a lot of good news out of Sierra Leone. And so I wanted to, I'm sure good things happen in Sierra Leone, but the international media does not pick it up all that often. So I was really excited to see that they're going to end a colonial era law that essentially made abortion like punishable by death in every single circumstance. And like, that's a real kind of distillation of the kind of thing. But President Bio, I believe is how I'm supposed to say it, has said unanimously approved the Safe Motherhood Bill that would include a range of critical provisions to ensure the health and dignity of all girls and women of reproductive age in this country. Women have fought for years. They have not been able to receive contraceptive services. They have not really been able, like, as a very, on a wide level, they haven't really been able to receive counseling or anything else, especially as you get into the rural areas. I'm not an expert in Sierra Leone. This is what the internet tells me, but I am very excited for the activists and the childbearing humans of Sierra Leone. Excellent news. Really, really exciting. Again, a terrible
news.
Yeah, and this is the last happy news until the last one. So
we're moving into geopolitics with Dr. Kristen time. So,
oh, guys, okay, let's talk about the death of Shinzo Abe. Things you'd never thought I would say, but here's why we need to talk about it.
We need to talk about Japan.
We need to talk about Japan. So Japan has an incredibly low rate. Excuse me while I adjust myself on the couch to not like make my hip go numb. Japan has an incredibly low rate of cultural violence. Incredibly low rate. And a non-existent gun ownership, non-existent mass violence, full stop. However, shockingly, last week, former prime minister and still very popular human, Shinzo Abe was assassinated with a homemade gun made out of PVC pipe.
Yeah.
And what this article, I think, is very intriguing from the BBC correspondent in one of the islands of Japan, explains that there is it's gotten to the point now where you can call it a pattern in Japan or a trend in a way, but there have been several really intense violent attacks in the last several years, all committed by men who are holding a grudge of some fashion against the person that they have harmed. This is similar in the United States to the incel movement, where men perpetrate harm upon women that they have grudges against because the women won't go out with them. The author of this article draws kind of parallels to that, where this is almost like a Japanese incel movement. We know when we did the Colonizers World Tour in Japan last year, it was one of the very first countries we did, actually. We learned that there's a low rate of women to men. It's a very male heavy society, and a lot of men are feeling very frustrated by that. There's been an uptick of mail order brides from other countries, things like that. Things are not okay with large groups of Japanese men of the millennial generation in particular, Gen X and millennial in particular. So this is, it's terrible that Shinzo died, that Prime Minister Abe died, absolutely. but it's also something we need to be paying attention to in the cultural movement of Japan. Japan has been very peaceful after being a heinous imperial power for a really long time. Japan has been very peaceful recently, and it's shifting a little bit in ways that are alarming Japanese citizens and experts.
Well said.
All right, you want to take this one?
I can. Oh yes. Oh, this is. Oh boy. Yeah. Please, I will take this one. Just to insert myself here into the Theranos of it all. We covered Hulu's phenomenal limited series, The Dropout, earlier
Emmy
this
nominated.
year. Emmy nominated. Emmy noms came out today. That's right. And, obviously we said we would come back with further updates because as we were filming the trial of Sunny Balwani was just starting as we were wrapping up. And so the news broke last week that he was, thanks Wall Street Journal, that Sunny was found guilty on all 12 fraud counts. All 12 of them. 6 months after Elizabeth Holmes was only found guilty of 2, I believe. Yep. The Wall Street Journal will not let me read this article, but we will also make sure and share in the downstairs that an article that explains why why there's this discrepancy in the fraud counts. But if the depiction of Sunny on The Dropout is accurate or close to accurate, it's easier for me to understand if he was the one directing some of the specific fraud aspects of fraud where, it was his decision to use the Siemens machine and lie about it. And if they were able to prove some of that through the emails, I would imagine then that some of those fraud counts were a bit easier to prove. But yeah, we're going to wait to see sentencing on this as we are waiting to see sentencing on Elizabeth Holmes. We like when people are held accountable for things like fraud, especially the Theranos of it all, which was a really, really hilarious and scary level of fraud. Yeah. Especially when people's health is concerned and where public health and public safety is concerned. So we'll keep a weather eye on this and see what the sentencing looks like for both of these fraudsters. But I myself was not surprised that I think the case was probably a lot stronger for Sunny because he was just, I don't know, angrier and
well, I think he also just wrote down more. She spent so much time out schmoozing people. Yeah. And he was the COO. So he wrote more stuff down.
Yeah. His name was on a lot more email signatures, I think for sure.
So. Yeah. Okay. So here's something that we don't really know what's happening. Unlike Theranos, where we feel like we have a pretty good grip on what's going on. But we just need you to know that it's happening. Sri Lanka's having a bit of a time.
Y'all,
They're having a bit of a time. The PM's residence has been set on fire. Protesters swam in the president's pool. There has been, it's all about the economic crisis, which is happening in Sri Lanka, where people essentially can't afford to eat, which is pretty lame. It's completely run out of foreign currency, which is a real problem, especially because that means that it's complete deregulation of their own currency is only moments behind. Mm-hmm. It cannot import basics like food, fuel, or medicine because it can't pay people. So things are not great.
Things aren't great
in Sri Lanka or the capital of Colombo. But it's not, of course, getting any traction in news outside of the BBC website alerts that I get. So we wanted you guys to be aware that this is another country that was deep into British rule, another colonization legacy. It used to be called Ceylon. If you read old-timey anything, that's Sri Lanka. It's one of its major exports is tea, as you can imagine.
Yes.
But a lot of this is really deep colonial legacy. We have not done Sri Lanka yet on Colonizers World Tour. So my only knowledge is that one of my favorite human beings lived there for about 8 years back in the 70s. That's all I got for you. So we just wanted you to know that things are abreast in Sri Lanka. Things are a brewing. And we think that you should keep an eye on it. So other things that actually something we should not be keeping an eye on that some people have been. Florence Pugh.
My transition was, speaking of breasts.
Okay.
See, we're getting there. Feeling snappy. This was actually one of my like least favorite and favorite things that has happened in the last week, like at the same time. Least favorite, totally unsurprising, the male population's at large reaction to Florence Pugh. My favorite thing, Florence Pugh's reaction to the male population's reaction. So in case you missed it, Florence Pugh wore a dress to the, oh Lord, I had it there because I was reading this article earlier. Valentino Haute Couture fall winter fashion show in Rome. You can see the said dress here. It's a gorgeous color. And she received a lot of backlash, as you can imagine, because she doesn't have anything covering her nipples. So she received a whole stream of comments about showing her nipples, but then also comments about her breast size, her nipple color, like you name it. It was ridiculous. And none of it surprised me because high patriarchy. But she wrote the best response to it. And I'm going to read like chunks of it because it made me so happy. Listen, I knew when I wore that incredible Valentino dress that there was no way there wouldn't be commentary on it. Whether it be negative or positive, we all knew what we were doing. I was excited to wear it. Not a wink of me was nervous. What's been interesting to watch and witness is just how easy it is for men to totally destroy a woman's body, publicly, proudly, for everyone to see. You even do it with your job titles and work emails in your bio. It isn't the first time and certainly won't be the last time a woman will hear what's wrong with her body by a crowd of strangers. What's worrying is just how vulgar some of you men can be. Thankfully, I've come to terms with the intricacies of my body that make me me. I'm happy with all of the flaws, in inverted commas, that I couldn't bear to look at when I was 14. So many of you wanted aggressively to let me know how disappointed you were by my tiny tits, or how I should be embarrassed by being so flat-chested. I've lived in my body for a long time. I'm fully aware of my breast size, and I'm not scared of it. What's more concerning is, why are you so scared of breasts? Small, large, left, right, only one, maybe none. Why is it so terrifying? It makes me wonder what happened to you to be so content on being so loudly upset by the size of my boobs and my body. I wore that dress because I know if being loudly abusive towards women publicly in 2022 is so easy for you, then the answer is that it is you who don't know. And this is the baller. I mean, this whole thing is baller, but this is like direct from the mouth of Florence Pugh into the words of Abby Research. Grow up, respect people, respect bodies, respect all women, respect life. Respect humans. Life will get a whole lot easier, I promise. So, I mean, I wanted to read that because I would have summarized it in that way. I love that she's talking about body positivity and accepting her body for what it is, and that she did this intentionally, knowing she was going to get flack for it, and that she called people out on it and just said, like, this is bullshit. I should be able to wear what I want. Why are you so scared of nipples? So for me, Florence Pugh's like intentionality in having this conversation is what's so admirable about it. And like she knew the backlash was going to happen. It was predictable. She intentionally, like, I'm sure she had this like statement mostly written, save for the specifics that people said, because she clearly feels this important about it. So yeah, I just became a Florence Pugh stan. And can we have less body shaming of ever, just ever? Thank you.
What does it matter?
What is it? Just respect people. Just respect all humans.
It's
Life
not
is
really
easier.
that challenging.
I promise you.
So for anyone who's not on Broadway Twitter,
y'all,
like, shit's going down with Funny Girl, a production that we have both seen and didn't particularly care for, with the exception of some performances.
Aside from Julie Benko, who was the understudy for Beanie Feldstein, and our beloved Ramen.
Yeah, that's
who
really it.
Who were fantastic in the show. And if you have a chance to go see Julie Benko and Ramen, go see them before they're done at the beginning of September, before she's done at the beginning of September. But yeah, it's a mediocre production at best.
Yeah, at best. I think I was tweeting with a friend who lives in Toronto, who's also a theater person, and I just said, Julie was amazing, and so was Ramen, and then everything else was there.
It was there. Yeah.
Like, that's the best. Like, I just kept thinking, like, you didn't cut that number? Why is that costume happening? What is going on? Anyway,
no updates at all to make it like more relevant and or palatable in 2022. And I was like, y'all.
Yeah, and especially coming on the backs of Music Man, which just artfully edited like little tiny tweaks to make it utterly perfect. Funny Girl was very disappointing.
Yeah.
Also disappointing is that Beanie Feldstein has left the production, is leaving the production 2 months before her scheduled date. And the person coming in is the person who was openly campaigning for it for months and months and years and decades, that like 90% of Broadway did not want to get her to get it, is Glee star Lea Michele.
Yeah.
Now, why didn't we want Lea Michele to get this role?
Well,
I have thing.
So many reasons.
Yeah. So first of all, Funny Girl needs to be played by a classically not beautiful or sexually alluring woman. And for most of Lea Michele's career, she has been coded as very traditionally attractive. Like Beanie Feldstein was even, and like that was my thing with Julie, is that her body was too thin. Like I needed somebody that like was a little bit more awkward and Fanny needs to be like a bit of a physical mess to transform into. I don't know. It just didn't feel.
Well, yeah, no, 100%. Right. I mean, that's why. I mean, like Barbra Streisand originated the role on Broadway. She is not a traditionally attractive, by heteronormative standards, person. She certainly wasn't in the movie, and that's the point of Fanny Brice, is that she is an exceptionally talented person that is not the most conventionally attractive. And a little bit of an oddball and doesn't quite fit in, but her talent like supersedes that.
Yeah.
But like, so look at Lea Michele. No one's gonna look at that picture right there on the screen and be like, "Oh yeah, she's not fit."
The other thing is that Lea Michele has consistently faced accusations of being a bully on the set of Glee, specifically to people of color. I am hesitant to call this particular individual who is calling her out, Samantha Ware. I'm hesitant to call her a star because I watched like 5 seasons of Glee and didn't know who she was. So
I have no idea. Yeah.
So I'm hesitant. She is definitely an actress on Glee, though. This, for the record, is the person leaving the role, Beanie Feldstein, for anyone who doesn't know who she is. So the summer of 2020, Samantha Ware accused Lea Michele of committing traumatic microaggressions against her during season 6 of the series. So this is the person who's being the loudest right now about it. But let me tell you, she's not the only one saying that Lea Michele is not pleasant to work with. No. She is not a nice person. There's a persistent conspiracy theory that she can't even read, which I don't know where it came from, but we don't tend to have conspiracy theories about nice people. And the thing is that it's very, like, she is the cash grab in this particular situation. And there are, like, Rachel Bloom should have gone into this role. Yeah. Like, she would have been perfect for it. Like, there's a lot of non-straight sized white women who could have done incredible things in this role, and they went with the one that's going to make them the most money, which, again, Broadway is a business. But there's a lot very shady. There's a lot that smells a little bit wrong about how this has all gone down.
Yeah, and especially because the production wanted to give the appearance that it was treating Funny Girl differently.
Yeah.
By casting Beanie Feldstein, and that they recognized the significance of what they were doing, having a not, traditionally thin-sized person, like having a plus-size person in this role. Because whatever you want to say about the physical attractiveness of Barbara Streisand, she was skinny as a rail.
Yep.
As Fanny Brice. And so for me, that's what's so disappointing, is that like they presented themselves as a show that cared about making people feel seen and giving a space for people to feel seen in such an iconic show, and then replaced her with a person who's going to make them a crap ton of money, but who has literally been accused of like erasing people in their work environment through these microaggressions, or trying to make them less visible or not feel seen and not feel valued. Yeah, just because she can sing. There's lots of humans in this world that can sing.
Just because she sang the song on Glee once. Okay, I sang it in my shower. And your point.
We've all sung that song. Can I be a Broadway star? No, I'm not. And like, no disrespect to Lea Michele's singing voice. She is an exceptional talent. But it feels icky. I don't like it. One of the things that somebody pointed out on Broadway Twitter really quickly was, as soon as Beanie made this announcement, even though Beanie is performing until the end of August, or like a couple more months, the end of July, sorry. They took her, they had made the icon of the show her face, and like the Twitter account took it out and it just says Funny Girl now, as soon as she made the announcement. And somebody was like, y'all, she's in this show for another 2 months. Like, if you want to change it to Lea Michele's face when Lea Michele becomes like, fine, when she takes over the role. But like, leave it Beanie Feldstein as long as it's Beanie Feldstein. Put Julie Benko in there for 3 weeks. You have the money in the graphics department. But that was super shady. It was like, oh, she's no longer our Funny Girl. And I'm like, but she is.
Yeah, and there's been like, Beanie's missed a lot of performances. And, there's, people in Ju Jamson will say it's because she's trying to give Julie a leg up. Other people have said the bullying is too much. Other people have said
she's have not. COVID.
She had COVID, but like even before she had COVID, she missed a lot of performances.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, her voice isn't up to it. Somebody leaked terrible rehearsal sound, like recordings of her practicing the songs when it wasn't, she wasn't ready yet. Like, there has been a real strong anti-Beanie Feldstein energy around this production. There's a lot of scuttlebutt, it's to like, why didn't she get a Tony? Well, she didn't, like all this kind of stuff. This all feels really shady. But unfortunately, I was hoping it would quietly close and we would never have to talk about it again. And instead, it's now going to probably run for 300 years because Lea Michele has nothing else to do because no one will cast her in anything. And
I know she's going to live in this role for as long
forever.
as Barbara Streisand did, for years.
Forever. So we now have to deal with this forever.
Yeah, so I hope our ramen gets out of there quickly. And doesn't
heads back to Holby City or something.
Yeah, please go do something that is not being with this allegedly very toxic person.
All right, so finally we're wrapping up with some good news. This comes to us from our team member Cheryl, who let us know that Ada Limon has been named the next U.S. Poet Laureate. Aaron and I are not like huge poetry stans, so we can't. I admit I don't really even understand what the Poet Laureate does. Laura Dern played her really well in The West Wing, but I don't really understand the Poet Laureate. But I know that I love a lot of people that love poetry, and I know that poetry is very important, and it can be very healing. I love spoken word. I love a lot of this, but I'm always thrilled when we acknowledge literary forms. I'm excited when we do art, and this is a thing that is happening that we would like you to know about.
Agreed. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say. I am not much for poetry myself, but excited to see I think the poet laureate is, and you know, Cheryl can correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I've paid attention to, it is a great platform for highlighting diverse voices.
I believe so too. When I was reading like the other people, like the reigning one up until today was an Indigenous woman.
Yeah, so like currently we have the first Native poet laureate. So I think they're doing the Lord's work and saying, you know, these are a lot of voices that you won't typically hear because they're not the ones that are going to get the big publishing contracts or you know, the Amanda Gormans are exceptions, not rules, into how poets are treated in the general public. And so hopefully this means more funding for her work and for other work for women of color and all that jazz. I don't know that the publicity of it is going to do much, but I think it's one of those, I lost the word there, like cultural benchmarks that it has some like cultural value, hopefully.
I think she gets money, so I think she gets paid.
Yeah, they get paid, but like symbolic, like it's I think it's an important symbolic thing that happens. So it was nice to end on something a bit happier than Leah Michelle.
All right. So letting you guys know that from here on out, we will be doing empathy exercises live on YouTube on Tuesdays, still at 1, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. But then we'll also be taking the empathy exercise game to Clubhouse at 10 a.m. on Friday mornings for completely fresh empathy exercises. And if you want a preview of those, you need to be on our newsletter because those will go out in a preview on Thursday. But you don't know what we think about them or what to do with them unless you join us on Clubhouse or catch the replay. So if you've got questions about Clubhouse, you don't know what's going on, and you want to make sure that you hear our thing, but you can't make it, shoot us a message here on wherever you're watching this, comment, and we'll get in touch with you to tell you all about Clubhouse. And then I think other exciting news from us is that we'd love for you to mark your calendars for September 23rd. You can spend the whole day with us at a virtual retreat, learning more about empathy. And essentially our premise is that the world is on fire and we all know it, but good news, we've got a fire extinguisher and we'd love for you to join us for a couple hours and learn how to build your own. Yeah. So between that, the Patreon I mentioned last week is still kicking out. We should have a link for you to join that next week. Even though we are closed from produced content for the summer, we are certainly not closed from producing content. So, Erin, anything else for the people?
No, I just want to make sure and bring in Cheryl's comment here, who watching us on LinkedIn. Hi, Cheryl. Thanks. Yes, the Poet Laureates raise awareness for reading and writing poetry and do events for that and such. So
awesome.
Fantastic. Congratulations again, Ada. Thanks for the assist. Teammate Cheryl. Please join us on the Patreon, especially our Handmaid's Tale folks in our YouTube community. We're going to have some fun Patreon level stuff for the next season of The Handmaid's Tale, which we're going to need to have to get through it, to be honest. So when we have the link, we'll be sharing it with you. Bookmark it, start squirreling away your pennies.
$5 whole a month.
$5 whole a month. And we'll have some fun with The Handmaid's Tale next season. So yeah, good to be back. Good to see everyone. And we will hopefully see some of you on Friday in Clubhouse. And if not, next Tuesday for more empathy exercises.
Stay safe, stay cool, and stay well, everybody. Bye.
Bye.